Hey, welcome to Novel Ideas, a podcast where we talk with political pros about creating a new playbook for democratic media. We're talking with our industry's best and brightest to amplify the new strategies we need to win because we know we can't win with the same old playbooks of the past. I'm Rachel Campbell. I'm an industry vet working at the intersection of politics and digital media. I'm CEO at Novel Messaging, and I love talking to smart people and turning hot takes into action. So that's what we're here to do today with my very special guest. I'm so excited to be joined by Ashwath Narayanan, the founder and CEO of Social Currant. Social Currant is a platform that helps social impact organizations match with the right creators to reach audiences more effectively. Their platform helps some of the largest groups in our space run campaigns on issues like voter registration, immigration, healthcare, etc. Ashwath founded Social Currant while he was still a student at George Washington University and is currently also a senior advisor to DC Archangels, an angel investing group in DC. So Ashwath has really been at the forefront of building real media infrastructure for our party, and I'm so excited that we get to chat with him today. Thanks so much, Ashwath, for being here.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Yay. Okay. So much to unpack with you, my friend. But first, I want folks to get a little bit of a sense of you and what you're up to. And we like to ask everybody sort of why they're a Democrat, especially in this year, 2025, year of our Lord. Like, you could be doing lots of things. There's lots of work in the creator economy in particular. So, what brings you to this work and why are you a Democrat?
Yeah, I think the shortest answer to that is it's the party that aligns most with my values. It's the party that I think will get us the closest to a society where we can be who we are. But I think the long answer to that is I think about 5 years ago when I was in college, I, went to school in DC and I was in a lot of nonprofit, a lot of impact spaces. And a lot of times I was the only young person there. And often I was in these rooms where people were trying to figure out how to reach other young people more effectively, how to reach Gen Z more effectively, around important causes, around important issues that aligned with my values. And a lot of times the people making these decisions or weren't Gen Z, but also there weren't other young people in the room. And so I sort of started Social Current and started, this agency to help organizations bring more young people into their room, bring more young voices to the table so that we could reach young people more effectively, so that we could sort of, talk about issues more effectively to younger audiences. And so a lot of why I'm doing this work right now is because of that insight. It was because of the lack of other people that looked like me in spaces. And I can dive more into sort of what Social Current does and how we sort of evolved, but the sort of long answer is it's because, you know, I want more young people to be represented in these spaces, and that's what brings me to this work.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, like, when you say that, I'm flashing back to, like, every Democratic campaign or party office I've ever walked into is, usually filled with volunteers who are of a different generation, um, and there's, like, lots of reasons for that, and not all of them good, and we need to get engaged and, get offline and go show up in person more, but I just, like, I I feel it in my body when you talk about that, like, essentially, like, a lot of older folks who are sitting around and being like, "How do we get more young people involved?" And it's like, well,
You can ask.
you could ask. Oh, that's funny. I feel like that will be a very relatable experience for a lot of folks in Democratic politics. So I didn't know that. That's cool. Okay. So we like to also, and I do want to unpack a lot more about Social Current, but maybe the way to kind of get into that is we also like to ask everybody who comes on. There's lots of problems that we all need to be working on and thinking about and dealing with every day. But let's pick one. What's one of the problems that you're most concerned with that you think the Democratic Party needs to be concerned with right now?
I mean, like you said, lots of problems, but I'm only one person. I think as we're thinking about 2024 and as we're thinking about the loss of the election, I think there's a lot of conversation around where things went wrong. There's the conversation around messaging and reaching people, through messaging that resonates with them. And then I think the other side of that is the distribution and the question I think a lot of people are asking about if we had the right message, would we be able to distribute it through the mechanisms we have? And so I think for me, where I'm focusing my time is the distribution problem. I think, the Democratic Party, the left as a whole struggles with distribution. And I think someone needs to solve that. And so I choose to focus my time on trying to solve it. I think when you think about distribution, a lot of it comes down to how a lot of these social media platforms operate. I think we're always playing in spaces that are better suited for the right. When you think about how the algorithms of TikTok, Instagram, Facebook all operate, they're built around content that generates outrage. The right is really good at that, the left is not. And so I think we sort of have a distribution challenge because of the platforms we operate in. And that's the problem I think we need to solve in the next 2 to 4 years.
Yeah, it's so funny. Well, one, I couldn't agree more, and if we spent, like, a fraction of the time and energy that goes into hand-wringing over every word of every script, if we spent a fraction of that same time and energy and resources worrying about the distribution, we wouldn't be in this mess. So it's not that message doesn't matter. We do need to do a lot of work on messaging. I have a lot of thoughts on that too, but duh, of course, of course I do. But this is like a big glaring hole, and it kind of connects, frankly, to what you were talking about with our earlier conversation, because I think the channels of distribution have changed very quickly and very dramatically, and the people in positions of decision making who control budgets and staffing and resourcing maybe have been slow on the uptake a little bit. And it's not as distribution now is not as directly controllable as it has been for decades. And I don't think people know what to do.
No, 100%. I mean, if you look at the changing consumption pattern statistics, like, I think the average user spends 2 hours on social media, and that's just the average. Like, the sort of normal young person spends a lot more. The average person consumes news from a different source than they ever have from influencers versus traditional media. And so I think consumption patterns are changing, and that has caused our distribution problem to really become worse because we're still distributing through old consumption patterns, and we need to start sort of evolving to distributing through existing consumption patterns, and through ways people are consuming information. So I think part of it's because the consumption patterns of the people controlling distribution are still the old ways of
Yeah.
consumption, but everyone else isn't the same. And so I think that's also part of the problem.
Yeah, I just saw a really you and I both love to share this kind of data around, especially on LinkedIn, and I just saw a new one, like, the 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 difference between ages and consumption data between age groups is so stark. Millennials and younger is effectively, like, the dividing line on consumption trends, and Gen X and older are still primarily consuming media through traditional legacy journalistic institutions, through cable news, through traditional linear television. And guess who runs most organizations and
Exactly.
who controls most budgets? We're lucky if we have a leader who's a Gen X, a member of the Gen X
Exactly.
generation, which is like its own party problem. But yeah, I think this is one symptom of that bigger problem is the sort of means of distribution, not to get, marks with it, but the controlling the means of distribution is a big part of this problem. Um, okay, so another part of distribution that I think is challenging for folks who don't spend as much time as you and I on social media is the algorithm. The algorithm is this, like, big scary beast that's not in our control and changes all the time. So What advice do you have for folks who are like worry about that? Like, oh, I want to pay to reach people, or I want, I want to make great content, but like, is it worth it because the algorithm may not even serve it? Like, how do you think about that?
I mean, I think about that in a few ways. I think the main thing is just because you don't do something doesn't mean someone else would. And so if you're thinking about whether you create content or not, if you're not creating content, someone else is, and they're going to reach an audience in some way. And so I don't think people should think about the algorithm as a way to create content or not. I think what people should think about is I know the algorithms are unpredictable. How do I use whatever I can to then drive people to another place that I can control distribution? And so whether that's a newsletter, whether that's a Substack, whether that's a text chain, like whatever it is, I think people should figure out how to use whatever they can in these algorithms to drive people to another space that is not an algorithm driven space that they can control. And so I think the algorithms are unpredictable. They always will be, but that's not a sign to not invest in them because we just honestly can't afford not to. Like, if we are not, like, if you look at X, for example, like progressives have left, X, a lot of the Democratic Party has left X. But that doesn't mean people are still not on X. There's so many people that still continue to use X, and now their primary source of information is mostly right wing content. And so we basically left a platform to be taken by other people. And I'm worried that by like talking about these algorithms, we'll leave the algorithms to be taken advantage of by other people because just because you're not doing something doesn't mean other people won't. And other people will continue to use the algorithms for good.
This is I'm struggling because there's like 8 million different rabbit holes I would love to fall in right now. Let's pick this one. This isn't necessarily directly related to like what you all focus on at Social Current and your work to help people engage with content creators, but it's a very close and adjacent, and you were just speaking to it. So we also like don't believe in content creation, period. Like we don't like resource teams. We're still like so many organizations are still asking very small, mostly junior people to manage 7, 8, 9 different social media platforms, and, like, wondering why we're not doing it well, and, like, there's no budget for content creation ever, or if it is a budget, it's, like, for one discrete standalone campaign. There's, like we don't even know how to conceive of, like, always on media production. I'm just curious, as somebody who works with people who are especially good at always on content production, how do you think, like, both, like, do you agree with this diagnosis? And also, like, um, how can folks start who know that they need to be making more content? Like, what have you learned from the content creators you work with, like, about how to approach content production?
I mean, I definitely agree with this diagnosis. And I think one of the, like, if you think about why it happens, I think a lot of it comes down to an over-reliance on paid reach. I think, like, essentially the glory days of Meta, you could pay to reach essentially anyone with TV. Like, you could spend more money to reach more people, and I think that still holds true in some cases. I think what has changed is people used to actually care about the ads before, and that is changing. Like, less people want to consume ads, less people want to consume paid content. And so I think, like, our over-reliance on paid leads to an underinvestment in organic, or at least has for the longest time. I think the other thing is a lot of the movement's money and investment comes in the last 3 months because that's when you can, have the most impact, supposedly. And so I think you can't build a good organic strategy in 3 months. Like, people need time to invest in building content and testing things out. And so 100% agree with your diagnosis, and I think in many ways, Democrats have caused this for themselves by relying on paid, by investing late, by investing last minute. I do think that's starting to change, but we definitely need it to change fast because we don't have that much time to sort of play around with organic. We need to be investing in organic now. And then to sort of answer your question around what sort of when I talk to content creators, the biggest thing that comes out about content. I think the most important thing is just, like, how long it takes. Like, I think there are examples of, like, people going viral overnight, but I think most content creators have, like, been creating content for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, consistently figuring things out before anything even hits. I think that has changed a little bit with TikTok, with discovery, but I think for the most part, content is just such a long game, and if you're starting to create content, you can't be creating content just for, like, the next 2 weeks. Like, it has to be thinking about the long term because it might not reach enough people in a month, but it might in 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, and that's, like, really hard to pitch to funders, especially in our ecosystem, where they're, like, to your point, sort of conditioned to expect discrete programs that can be run towards the end of the cycle with, like, certain metrics and KPIs and things like that, that sort of we equate to value and return. Um, okay, so there's all these problems. We're bad at content. We don't invest it early enough or at a large enough scale. So what are some of the solutions we should be prioritizing? What are some of the things that folks can be doing to do this better? What does it look like?
So I think this is a good opportunity for me to tell you a little more about sort of how we founded Social Current.
Yeah.
Why we did it. So we started off as like this agency doing stuff to help organizations with young people. And then this nonprofit Community Change reached out. They were doing a campaign around the child tax credit, and they were trying to figure out how they could promote the child tax credit without taking all their dollars and giving it to Meta and Google. And we were like, hey, why don't we find a bunch of content creators who actually got the policy themselves, and why don't you invest in them to talk about their lived experiences? And so over the course of 2 weeks, we sort of found these content creators who all got the policy themselves. They had a lived experience around it and literally did a video saying, this is what I used it for. You should use it too, with the intention of reaching more people that could use the child tax credit. Goal was to reach 100,000 people. We reached 400,000 and sent 10,000 people to a website within this course of 2 weeks. And we saw the impact of what it could look like to invest in people with audiences instead of investing only in platforms where audiences are. And since then, really sort of started helping advocacy orgs, nonprofits work with content creators to reach audiences more effectively. I think sort of as I think about the distribution challenge and as I think about how the right is invested, I think for on the left, we have to build an ecosystem of voices, of content creators, of messengers that have trust with their audiences. We need to invest in them year round to share messaging with their audiences, to help their audiences access different policies, to help their audiences understand the news more effectively. I think a lot of what I see as a solution to our distribution challenge is investing in our people that are already there or that want to be here, but we don't have sort of a home for them. And so for me, I think the way out of our distribution problem isn't a platform, it's the people that are already part of this movement in many ways.
Yeah. It's so funny, because so much of, like, democratic values and democratic messaging is about investing in people and steering resources to people, but when it comes to our how we think about media, we, like, only wanna give it to the world's largest corporations, and I've talked about this before, but, like, there's almost this, like, ick factor I think people have who are newer to content creator work, where they feel like it's gross if it's pay to play or something like that. Like, how do you talk to people about that? And, like, I think you basically did just answer that, but I'm curious if you have any, like, more examples or any other, like, things that come to mind when you think about what it means to, like, actually work with and pay the communities impacted by issues.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of why investment in creators is hard, I think comes down to control. I think people on the left, the Democratic Party as a whole, is built around trying to control a very specific message. And if you think about working with content creators, like it is the exact opposite of that. You're investing in people who probably have a different take on a message and are sharing that, and their audience loves them because of that different take. And so I think, like, at the core of it, I think working with creators is sort of in many ways different from the systems in which the party operates, and that's why it can be hard. I think the other part is, yes, I think there is a little bit of an ick around paying people, which again, we're supposed to be the party that invests in people. Why are we worried about paying people? Unclear. And I think I've actually seen that conversation less and less over the last 4 years. I think when we started it out, we would get people come to us and they're like, "Oh, we have to pay creators." I think now the conversation is more around how much, how long, how. And I like actually don't see that conversation that
Yay.
much on the organization side, which I think is a win. But I
Yeah.
think a lot of that is also like explaining to people what it's like to be a creator and how that can be different than traditional media. When you think about a journalist, they're often under a larger entity. And so when, there's an event and you ask a creator to come, a creator is paying that. When you ask a journalist to come, the organization, the news media organization is paying for that. And so it's like important to explain to people like the mechanics of what it's like to be a creator so that they can then understand why they need to pay a creator for their time and labor. That can often help.
Are you seeing more organizations building, um, more sustained, kind of always on payment structures, or are people still mostly engaging around discrete campaigns?
I mean, I think the vast majorities. Like last year, we did like a sort of readout on our stats, and like 92% of the work we did was in a one-off capacity because our clients had a budget for a specific thing. That didn't mean we didn't work with the same creator multiple times through different clients, but for the most part, an organization worked with a majority of the creators just once instead of multiple times. I think it's changing. I think we're getting more people coming to us asking and thinking about building long-term programs, ambassador programs, fellowships, things of that sort. But I think the vast majority is still built in a campaign basis. And I think that a lot of that is because the way a lot of these organizations operate is they have budgets that are built around campaigns and they might have multiple campaigns. And so they have to pull money from different pots for a creator program, and that can be hard to do like a long-term creator program because you have to pull from different things. Then there's like legal stuff around C3, C4 pack stuff. And so I think it's like harder structurally for organizations to run creator programs because of how they operate. Because if you're running an ad program, like you typically don't have always on ads. You have ads for a specific campaign. And so you have creators for a specific campaign. And so I think the like format and the ways in which people operate in this space has to change for there to be space to run long-term creator programs, but it is changing. We're seeing more people get creative about building long-term creator programs.
That's so interesting. Like, one of my, like, nerdy rants is about, like, how we need to modernize a lot of our, like, staffing and contracting and budgeting. Like, it's like the not sexy back office stuff that, like, is holding people back in a real way. And, like, do you know what Gen X and boomer leaders are very good at? Is fixing this stuff. Like, it'd be great if we could get some of y'all's help to, like, reimagine some of these structures and put in place contracting and budgeting processes that support the things we need to be doing. So, the other part I wanted to ask you about, one of the things that I think is so cool about how you are attacking this from Social Current is you are, sort of making it more possible for organizations and content teams to partner more directly with content creators, and you're another person, in this space that I see talking a lot about, like, how content partnerships are organizing. So can you talk a little bit about what that means to you? Like, how is this organizing? What are the overlaps? What are the differences? And then how does that shape the platform that you guys are building?
Yeah, I mean, I think talking a little bit about our sort of vision at Social Current, I think if you look at the way creator work has operated for the last 2 to 4 years has been very much in like a network model. So like Social Current has our network of creators. Different agencies have their different networks of creators, and then at the core of what we do, we sell access to that network to different organizations. Um, And I think there's a lot of value in that because we're building and maintaining and those relationships. But I think at the end of the day, for me, it's more valuable for the organization to have the relationship with the creator directly because in a rapid response moment, or if there's something, the organization's the one doing the real work. Like we are not doing any real work around immigration. We're supporting people doing it. But at the end of the day, for us, there's more value in sort of these two sides having the relationships. And so when I think about our role at Social Current, I want to help power those relationships and be less about us having our network and selling access to that network and more about like how can we help any organization build their own creator network? Because in 2 years and 4 years and 10 years, every organization is going to have to figure out how to have their network. And we want to help them build the tools because an organization sending a contract to 20 creators will take so long, and the creators will get annoyed by the time they get that contract, and so how can we, like, provide the infrastructure for them to send a payment, a 1099, a contract, get data, analytics, all of that in one place, and then enable sort of direct access, and so that's what we're thinking about, and that's what we're trying to build because we believe that the direct relationships are really important and have to be how we move forward.
I think it's so exciting. It's like I get excited about innovation and sort of entrepreneurial ideas, and like all good businesses at their core are like solving a problem. And I think like this is a really good one to solve. I'm really excited. And you and I talked once and you were talking about sort of like adoption as people like their sort of point of entry is often with this sort of network model. And then as they get a little bit more comfortable, they feel more comfortable taking some of this on more directly. Are you seeing that like learning curve in real time with groups?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, we have clients that like hired us on as an agency and now just use the platform because they want to directly talk to creators. They want to run their own campaigns. I think one of the important sort of signs we're seeing towards this shift is I think even like a year ago, you did not have an influencer manager at any organization in the sort of progressive nonprofit space, like not a single one. And now, like the DNC is hiring an influencer manager. Like different organizations are putting out job roles specifically built around building and maintaining relationships with creators. And those people want direct relationships. They don't want to talk to me and then I talk to the creator and then the creator talks to me and then I talk to like they want to talk directly to the creator because they see the value in that. And so I think that's an important sign of sort of how the industry is changing. And I think there's always going to be organizations at scale that want to hire an agency for specific strategy. But I think there's also going to be more of the organization that wants to directly talk to creators.
There's going to always totally be a role for strategy, but there's also like the same way that large organizations who have the budget and scale to in-house their paid media or in-house their own social content production, they should be in-housing their own creator relationships. Um, this is like a little bit of like a spicy take. I'm curious if you're welcome to push back or disagree. I struggle with 2024 being labeled as like the creator election a little bit because um like, yes, it was the first cycle where we saw any sort of scaled program or dedicated staff at the presidential level. And typically in our space, a lot of innovation happens on presidential campaigns. And then the next 4 years, the rest of the campaign and progressive infrastructure is sort of trying to learn and adopt those innovations, right? And so, yes, to the extent that like 2024 was the first cycle where we saw significant teams and investments in creator work, that brand of 2024 being the creator election fits. My struggle with it is like, but it's still like minuscule and slow relative to the change in the media landscape. And the scale of investment was still like a fraction of investment in other traditional forms of media and including paid media. And it's still like baffling to me that we are just now almost 6 months into 2025 getting the first dedicated staff focused on this at the DNC level, which is like a marker of like the party's priorities, right? And it's no shade, things move slow. I'm not like holding anyone to blame, but I guess my pushback is more like I don't want us to get comfortable and like pat ourselves on the back, like, oh, we did it, we're really nailing it. Like, I think it's really important that we focus on how much we are still behind and how much there's still to grow. So I get a little like touchy when people are like, "Oh, it was the creator election." I'm like, "Ah, no, it wasn't." I mean, kind of, but not really.
I mean, I fully agree with your take. I think 2024 should have been the creator in election, but I think when we decided that, it was like August or September. And
Right.
so, like, there's no way you can make it the creator election by like investing in August and September. And so I think a lot of people do call it the creator election, but I think 2026 and 2028 is where we have a real opportunity to make it the creator election and make it work in the way it's supposed to. But a lot of that investment has to start now or had to start 6 months ago. And so, like, 100% on the same page as you, and I think a lot of it's because of when we decided it was the creator election, and a lot like, we did a look at our stats, and, like, almost 70% of, like, all our money to invest in creators came in the last 3 months. And, like, what can you really do at that point when you're talking about creators who often have never talked about these issues? Like, it's essentially like a lot of it you can compare to organizing. Like, when you're trying to organize people, you don't just, like, show up once and ask them. I mean, people
You
do that,
shouldn't.
but you shouldn't just show up once right before an election and then disappear every time after. Creator work is the same way. Like, a lot of creators were getting outreach from the campaign, from different organizations, like, getting to like, wanting to say explicit endorsements. And when you've never talked about anything political ever, and the first thing you talk about is go vote for Kamala Harris. Like, people are gonna be like, "What are you talking about? Like, I didn't even know you were political. I didn't even know you cared about issues, and now you're doing an endorsement. Feels fake."
Right.
And I think, like, the creator election could have been the creator election if we'd started earlier, but unfortunately we didn't, and we do have an opportunity to make the next one count.
Right, and just, like, to play that out, because I think this is so important. Because I think some people also showed up to the party late and then kinda had a weird or bad experience, and so then they're sort of, like, now skeptical. I've heard some pushback about, like, "Oh, but creators, it didn't really work out," or, "We were all just paying for the same people, and what did we really get?" And, like, there's, like, some, like, narrative, but it's actually, I think, really connected to what you're identifying, which is, like, we showed up late at the end. What would it look like if we had showed up 3, 6 months earlier and let these creators start talking about policy, start talking about issues, start talking about values, and weave that in and introduce their audience? It's almost like we need to talk about cultural narratives.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's
Like,
like, so much of the conversation around, like, "Oh, we paid the same people," but, like, if we'd start earlier, we'd just have more options, we'd have more people that wanted to do this work. But at some point in October, it's like you max out, like, you're not gonna be able to convince new people
yeah,
who haven't talked about it to talk about it just because it's, like, 2 weeks out.
right,
And so I think, and also from a structural perspective, if you're only doing 1 post, 1 post, 1 post, creators are gonna say yes because they know in December they're gonna get 0. And
right.
so, like, from that perspective too, it's like we built everything around a funding incentive just didn't work, and I think we need to rethink how we do that, and we can't be the ones complaining about it because the creators are the ones that are really suffering as a result of it.
It didn't work for creators. It didn't work for audiences. Because to your point, we got a lot of folks who'd never talked about any of this stuff airdropping in, and it felt inauthentic or even, like, produced some backlash, like, so we need, like, for this to work, we need to start earlier. We need to invest in a sustained way. We need to treat it as a relationship and as organizing, and that starts now. Like, yeah. Okay. The other, I did wanna, like, ask you a little bit about your take on this whole, like, there's been multiple waves of think pieces. It started with, like, we need the Joe Rogan of the left, and then, like, no, that's not how our party works, and, we need to it's and now it's sort of evolved into we need to engage in cultural discourse and, like, find people who are not talking about politics every day, but who are posting recipes or doing makeup tutorials or posting their workouts and recruit those folks to then like weave some values and slightly political messaging into their content. I'm just curious, like, how do you think about that? Are you working on anything like that? Is that stuff we should be doing? How does it work? Help us.
I mean, I think, like, my answer to people asking me about which one is, like, all of them, we need political creators to be able to build sustainable channels. We need them to grow their channels. We need them to get as large as possible because one more person following a lefty political creator means one more person getting our information. So we need that, and we've historically underinvested in those types of people. The platforms are not paying them, the brands are not paying them, and a lot of the nonprofits don't want to pay them because they're already talking about politics. And so we need to make it economically viable for them to be able to do what they do. So that's definitely one thing we need to invest in. I think the second one is like we need to make it more culturally appealing, financially appealing, and more sort of viable for a non-political creator to also talk about politics. Then we also need to make it acceptable for them to not talk about politics every day, but when they want to and
Right.
when they can. And we need to, like, I heard a creator talk about this as microdosing. We need to let them microdose their audience through issues now and then get really aggressive in October and then microdose again. And so we need to create an environment for these creators to be able to be political. But I think part of that means we need to make it okay for the political creators to be political so that people see them as having some sort of viable success being a political creator and want to become political creators. Because right now, like, no one wants to be a political creator because it's hard. Brands blacklist you. No one wants to work with you. You get so much hate. So we need to like build a better ecosystem for like everyone. And that means investing in like all parts of the spectrum pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like sometimes it's so frustrating because these are like very simple economic problems to solve. It's like these are business challenges. They're not even like there's no issue with supply or demand. It's just like creating the right we know what the answers are. We just need to be able to put them in place. Which is I mean, I sort of have talked about this too. Ultimately, a lot of what this challenge comes down to is not like we started talking about like message and distribution. Yes, but like we know it's not like we have to figure out the distribution. Like we know what to do.
Right.
So really our challenge is actually like more emotional and change management. Like it's which is honestly more frustrating because it's like I keep wanting to be able to like show people data and have them be like, yes, this is the answer. Let's do it. And I just like I keep having this experience over and over this year. Maybe you do too, where people are like, yes, we need to do more with content creators. Yes, I want to do that. Help me figure out what that looks like. And then it gets to the point where it's like they don't have a line item in their budget for this and they got to figure out where the money's going to come from, or they don't have someone on their team who is like resourced to own this
Right.
internally. So then we just keep I just keep hitting all of these like silly roadblocks. And then that's why it's not happening, or another 3 months goes by before something happens and anyway, I just this is a little bit of like a loose rant here, but that's actually I feel like the biggest obstacle. I don't know how to fix that. Do you? Like,
I mean, no, I think that's a challenge. It's like we know we have all these people that are ready to go, are really interested, engaged around the election, and want more guidance. And we have people like we have all the elements for what it looks like to build real creator infrastructure. We're just waiting for someone to invest in it. I think we do need to like solve the like messaging stuff and like all of that at the same time, but like I don't think we need to solve that before we invest. Like we can do two things at one time.
well,
We need
also,
to invest.
isn't this an investment in more relevant
Right.
messaging? Like
Exactly.
like
It's like we get real-time feedback from people that are talking to their audiences all the time, understanding what they need, what they want, what they're talking about. Like, this is also an investment in messaging 100%, and I think right now we're at this stage where, like, we just need to like everyone needs to like everyone that's doing some sort of creative work just needs more resources to do more of it, and we need people to get those resources.
And the permission and the safety to experiment and test
100%.
and build and try things. Yeah. Okay, lovely. Well, that's plenty of hot takes, but we have one more that we want to go to the hotline. We're going to go to the hot takes hotline.
Give us a call at the Hot Takes Hotline.
And for anybody listening, the line is open. You can call us anytime, day or night. Leave us a 60-second anonymous voicemail, 1-844-4-HOT-TAKES. Give us a call. Let us know what you're thinking about. And we'll play your message on a future episode. Today, we've got a message that I'm excited to hear your take on, Ashwath. Let's go hear it.
My biggest hot take about working with some clients in a consulting capacity is that sometimes clients just don't really know what their goals are, and they don't give an accurate understanding of where they want to go, how they want to get there, and what actual change and growth and goals look like. They have loftier ideas that don't actually track to things that you can measure, and frankly, things that you can really control. So that's really my rant of the day, is working with clients who can't articulate their goals and thus have a hard time understanding when you're actually reaching your goals.
We're spicy. As someone who has done a fair amount of client work in a space that is new to most of the clients that you are engaging with, I am very curious for your take on this. How do you respond?
I mean, I actually didn't think it was a hot take. I thought it was just like made a lot of sense. I don't know what that says about me. I mean, I think a lot of times people coming to work with creators like aren't sure what it looks like, and so I think from our perspective a lot of it isn't necessarily because of a client not knowing their goals. It's just because there's so many things you can do with creators and it's such a new space, and that just manifests in clients having different expectations and different needs and different wants. And so I see our role as trying to help them do that. But yeah, 100%, I think a lot of times folks that don't know what they want can often hurt a program because them not knowing what they want trickles down to every single part of a program and results in the program failing. And then they're sort of like, what happened? We're sort of like, what happened?
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of it's like, I think there needs to be real work done to figure out what the strategy is before doing the work. And a lot of how this space operates is in rapid response, and they're doing everything all at once, and that's when it can be really hurtful if someone doesn't know their goals.
I think it's right, and I think sometimes people, especially with, like, the new shiny thing, are like, "Let's do it because we gotta do the new shiny thing," and then they kind of, like, try and backfill later why, which is, like, to your point, creators can be used to do almost anything. You can fundraise with creators, you can mobilize with creators, you can persuade with creators, you can amplify your brand with creators, like, so clarity of goal is, like, essential. I remember, like, battling this a lot in the you were talking about earlier about, like, the glory days of Facebook advertising. There was, like, a knee-jerk reaction of, like, "Well, what are our Facebook ads?" And I'm like, "Well, what do you wanna do?" Like, and it's funny because then there's almost this, like, resistance to specificity, like, there's like, "Oh, well, it needs to do all these things," or, "We need to do all of this at once," and it's,
Right.
like, this constant trap of, like, doing all the things means you're doing none of them, right? Like, anyway, these are, struggles of, like, consultants, uh, and I get that, like, when you're on the client side you're like, I had to, like, go raise this money. This is, like,
Right.
precious, and I wanna get as much as I can out of it. So I get it,
100%.
but we gotta pin it down sometimes. Um, what you said it's not spicy. Make it spicy, Ashwath. Let's
I mean,
hear it.
not that it's not I just think it's, like, real. I think it's just, like, many people would probably agree with that take, just because that's the way sort of this work is. It's, many people don't know their goals and are trying to figure it out, and it's our job to help them try to figure it out. I mean, I do think the creator space has, like, a unique opportunity to navigate this, like, unclearness in a different way than, like, ads. Like, I've been trying to encourage more people to potentially think about creator work in coalitions. So, for example, if you're a repro org and you have a $10,000 budget, instead of spending that $10,000 by yourself on 3 creators and doing 1 post each, could you, like, go to other orgs, combine budgets, and then build, like, a creator program focused on a few creators with the goal of helping them do more repro messaging that's not tied to an org? Like, that might have more impact than your $10,000, and I feel like if you're unclear about your goals, but you have to run a creator campaign, think about, like, could you amplify or engage with someone else's creator campaign to have a deeper impact? Because I think it's not as effective if, like, necessarily with ads, but with creators, like, you're investing in people and, like, together your investment might make more difference than just, like, you solo. And so, like, how can you think about, like, doing creator work in coalitions is, like, something I'm playing around with, but just haven't done a lot of.
Let's talk. That's a great idea. I know some people we should take it to. No, that's a really good point. And yeah, like ultimately with any new thing, and also this is like the job of a consultant that, you're hired to help your clients figure this out, right? Um, However, I am curious. I'm going to ask you one more thing, and this is like maybe spicier territory, but I also find that a lot of the consultants who are experts in this kind of stuff tend to be younger, there's a lot of women who work in digital, there's a lot of people in color who work in digital mediums, who work with content and work on social media. And I do find that not always, and it's changing, but sometimes, especially when you're trying to make the case to people who have a more legacy point of view on media, there's like more pushback or an assumption that if it doesn't make sense to them, it must be wrong instead of like um, a like trust in the expertise of the people who are articulating it. I don't know. Have you encountered this at all as like a notably young leader in these spaces?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like if you think about the incentive structure, right? Like the client is paying you, and so if they stop paying you, like that hurts you. And so it's like it can be a lot of times hard to push back because you have real fear of losing the client. And so I do think the incentive structure also like hurts how people might be able to push back. I also think, yeah, 100%. I think if you're younger, it hurts. I think in our case, sometimes it helps because, like, most of our clients are sort of like, "Hey, I know nothing about this. Can you help me?" And so it helps in that way. I think in the other way, it's like, I want something very specific and, like, I don't care about your expertise. I just want you to do it. And we have a fair amount of those as well. And I think it's like, I think I'm always trying to think through how we can empower our team to be able to navigate those situations and, like, come in to help because yeah, I think if you're younger, if you're a person of color, if you're a woman, like, it just is so much harder to push back 'cause the incentives are just not in your favor in most cases, and, I think overall as a whole, we need to start trusting people, that probably are closer to the consumption of this effort than you are.
Yeah. You never underestimate the power of someone who is hiring you because they don't know something to still tell you that you're wrong about something. That's funny. Okay. Great. Well, thanks. This was really, really fun. We all have so much to learn from you. I just also want to say, like, obviously what you're doing in the creator space is really important and exciting, but I also just think it's really cool to watch you build your business and like watch you as an entrepreneur. I think it's really exciting. So congrats on like a great, first couple years out. I'm really excited to see where you go. And thank you so much for being here today in this conversation.
No, thank you for having me and excited to sort of stay in touch and continue chatting through this space because we need it.
We got lots to talk about. We got lots to talk about. For folks who want to stay in touch with Ashwath, you can check out their website at socialcurrant.co, and it's Currant. That's how you spell social current. Ashwath, any other plugs you want to put in here? You want folks to follow you on the socials? Are you an active socialer? How does it work in your life?
I'm a big LinkedIn person, so connect with me on LinkedIn, but follow Social Current on all socials. We're trying to create more content.
The ever interesting challenge of trying to make content for your own org instead of for
Exactly.
other people. Oh, hey, it's how we ended up here on Novel Ideas. Okay. Speaking of, you can follow us. We have a Substack, novelmessaging.substack.com. We're also on YouTube at Novel Messaging. And again, call us on the hotline. Call 1-844-4-HOT-TAKES. We want to hear from you. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time with more novel ideas.